How are you feeling today? I guess I've been doing better, Doc, Brian replied as he rested on the sofa. It was a bit hard to take in at first. Relocating to a new city, a new home. It was tough, but I've been getting better. That's great to hear, Brian. Have you been socializing? Made any friends? Well, I have been talking to a neighbor who was in my situation as well. That's very good, Brian. I'm glad you're making some form of progress. Yeah, me too. The psychiatrist quickly took notice of Brian's change of tone, and she could guess why. The voice, she said. Do you still hear the voice, Brian? Brian paused, but reluctantly nods. Yeah, I can still hear it. What does it say? Nothing's changed. It's the usual screaming in my head. Get out, get out, get out, leave. You don't belong here. Get out, get out. I see, he sighs. I just don't know, Doc. I really think I messed up somewhere. Brian, I assure you, she said, the body takeover process was successful. Hearing the voice of the original owner is a harmless side effect that will eventually dissipate. I'm still waiting for that moment. While it varies for our kind, it should be gone within a few days, but if it helps, I can prescribe you a medicine that should keep the audio disturbance at a minimum. That would help immensely. Thank you, Dr. Brian stopped himself. Sorry. I mean, Dr. Jen, he said, correcting himself. It's alright. I'm still getting used to the new names myself, she chuckled. I'll see you in 2 weeks for our next appointment. There was a monster under my bed. I say it was because it's not there anymore. I don't know where it went. I used to lie awake at night, terrified, listening to it whisper until morning arrived, and it disappeared to wherever things in the night go when faced with the day. But then one evening I got into bed. My parents tucked me in and turned off the light. And for the first time since I could remember, there was silence. It took a long time for me to summon the courage to check. What if this was a new ploy? A way to make me scoot closer and closer to the edge, ready to dash back at the slightest sound, slowly extending a hand out into the air, lowering myself until my eyes are level with the frame of my bed, so that anything could reach and pluck them out. And what if I did all this anyway? But when I looked, discovered nothing but emptiness. Is it strange to say that I miss it? That I had grown so used to the terror and misery that as soon as it was removed, I somehow longed for it back? To lie with my covers over my head, ignoring the sound of claws scraping against wood, the warm stench of decay that would waft upwards, the promises and premonitions it would make about myself and my family. For it had been with me for so long that it's like losing a piece of myself. I spent days in bed, shaking and crying and attacking anyone that tried to remove me. Any food or drink that was brought to me was thrown across the room, until eventually I became too weak to do that even. My parents alternated pleading, but they refused to listen to the real reason for my grief. I sleep under the bed now. The hope is that maybe if it knows I'm down there, I'll awaken one evening to the lightest of touches, a gentle tracing up my spine, while words in a foreign tongue are whispered into my ear from a voice dark and terrible. That I'll go to slide myself under only to feel my feet slip into wide, gaping jaws, sharp teeth tearing through muscle and bones as I'm messily devoured. My struggles are no match for the insatiable hunger now consuming me. Nothing helps. No amount of wishing, or chanting, or prayers to both gods above and below will work. My parents are worried. They talk about me late at night, in the same sentences as psychiatrists and institutions. I know because The bed I sleep under is theirs. They don't know I'm down there, though. Sometimes I'll whisper to them or leave little gifts for them to find. But I won't leave. I'll stay under as long as it takes, because one way or another, there will be a monster under the bed again. She brought it home from school about a month ago. It was part of a third-grade art project. They were all supposed to make a cutout of their favorite animal. They used butcher paper as much as they wanted. My daughter, of course, wanted to use as much paper as physically possible. She started with white paper, pulled it out. She drew it from a picture of an old magazine. It was a penguin, except 3 feet high. Afterward, they all got their scissors and cut them out. Her penguin spent a week in the hallway of her school, next to the 4th graders' lockers. "It's great, Emma," I told her. "Looks like you spent a lot of time on it." "I made the biggest animal in the class," she told me, proudly. "Can I put it on the wall? Let's hang it in the kitchen," she shouted, running to grab the tape. "Hey, maybe that's not the best place for it," I told her. I could see the look of disappointment on her face, and I quickly deflected. "I want to put it in my room, so I can see it all the time," I said, kissing her forehead. She was satisfied with this arrangement. She went into the next room to play with our dog, Sam. I quietly opened the closet and taped the penguin to the inside of the door. When the closet was closed, that thing was out of sight. Just as I had hoped, she forgot about the penguin the next day, but I didn't. It was there when I was getting ready for work in the morning. It watched me dully while I picked out my tie. 2 nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night. I squinted at the clock next to my bed. 2:04 a.m. I nearly jumped out of my skin as a dull creak registered on the other side of the room. The closet door slid open in the darkness, and the faint moonlight sneaking through the crack in the curtains. I could see it. That penguin, staring through the dark. The next night, I made sure the closet was closed when I went to bed. When I woke up in the morning, I turned to see the door wide open again. The penguin looked back at me silently. A few nights earlier, after putting Emma to bed, I made my way to my room. I looked and saw the closet was closed. I didn't want to, but I checked inside. I don't know why I did, to be honest. The penguin was gone. It just wasn't there anymore. I never asked Emma if she knew what happened to her art project, and we never spoke of it again. I love my boyfriend. He's kind and caring and can practically see right through me. He's always so in tune to my needs and can tell what I want with just a glance. No matter what it is, he goes above and beyond just to get it for me. And it's because of that, so many teens have gone missing, sacrificed to my voracious appetite. But, alas, it's time to move on. So it's time for one final meal. I loved my boyfriend. He was kind and caring, and tasted better than anyone else. My cousin passed away in a plane crash last month. After his death, the entire family gathered for his last rites and funeral services. My cousin's wife was really devastated. She was uncontrollably crying. My cousin's 3-year-old son went up to her and said, "Don't cry, Mom. You'll see Pops very soon." All the family members in the house heard him say that and thought he meant at the funeral service. Strange enough, she died the next day. I clutched the crowbar in my hands. You sure about this, Trevor?" "Yeah, hurry up, man," he said in a rushed whisper. All right, I murmured. The window slowly slid up, big enough to crawl through. "Boost me up, man," Trevor said quietly. put my hands down a bit, cupped them ready to lift him up. He climbed up through the window and slowly stood up. He then helped me up. Once I was up, I patted the knife on my side. Trevor and I wandered slowly into the kitchen, knives drawn. A muffled humph came from a door off to the side. "I thought you said no one was home," I whispered. Trevor stepped forwards and opened the door. "Just a pantry. Nothing." Then, we hear it again. From the wall, I thought. I step over to the noise. I move a box, revealing a trap door. I grab the string attached and pull it up slowly. Just a ladder, going down into pitch blackness. "I'll go first," Trevor suggested. He slowly climbs down into the darkness, and suddenly, a light turns on down there. Trevor comes back up to the base of the ladder and gives a thumbs up. I climb down. We look around only to see a man with his mouth covered in duct tape, tied to a pipe. His eyes go wide-eyed as he stares at Trevor. Suddenly, Trevor stabs me in the back. I fall to my knees. He knees me to my hands and knees. I shout, "Surprise!" He grabs a long length of rope and ties it around my neck, creating a noose. He then tied my hands. He grabs a stool from the side and sets it down in the center of the room. "Don't feel bad, David. I do this to everyone. I even did it to Daryl behind me, tied to a pipe." He then lifts me up and puts me on the stool, tying the rope connected to the noose to the pipes above. "Goodbye, David." Trevor then proceeds to kick over the stool and watch as my vision fades. It was an easy grab. Like many times before, someone had left their laptop on the table. In truth, Marcus had waited for this exact moment. He didn't need to run or make any distractions. No one else had paid much attention to the laptop or himself as he stood among the bookshelves. Marcus began to walk out of the library and towards his apartment. People around him gave him odd looks, but he simply blamed his apprehension on paranoia or his appearance. Marcus knew that people like him made others uncomfortable. When he got to his apartment, he let out a sigh of relief. Soon enough, he'd be able to make a quick profit. He opened the laptop and found that it didn't have a password or even a username. Curiosity had gotten the better of him, and he had begun to explore the files like he always did. Marcus stumbled backwards in shock, the snuff video he had found still playing in the background. Someone knocked on his door, and it was weak enough that Marcus ignored it. The next knock was louder, filled with potent rage. Marcus stared at the door as the autoplay feature went on to the next video, and a shrill voice filled the stagnant air of the apartment. "My name isn't important, but you are mine now, and I want the camera to see your smile." The woman in the video cried out, but no one heard her. The knocks grew more frequent. Someone was trying to talk to him, but he couldn't understand. The voice seemed distant and foreign. "I can't remember much, but I want to remember you." Marcus stared at the video. The horrific details of the body seemed muted by the quality of the camera, but Marcus felt that the room looked familiar as the man in the video refocused the camera back on himself. A wiry smile stretched across his face like a line drawn by a madman, and warped his already emaciated features. He laughed, remembering the orgasmic satisfaction of the kill, and the laugh hung in the air like a bloated corpse. The laptop belonged to him after all. The police broke down the door and rushed to Marcus. Moving quickly, they secured the apartment and peeled back the shower curtains of the dilapidated bathroom inside. None of them could tell where the bodies stopped and became individual corpses. There was only a bloody mass. The first officer to peel back the curtains cursed loudly and began to vomit. The others stepped outside, their minds filled with the resignation of seeing familiar sights before, but never to this degree. Marcus looked up at the officer that was restraining him and asked, "Is the game over now?" She came out of nowhere into my life. The first thing I noticed about her was her smile. Just a hint of it, like Mona Lisa. We were inseparable within a year, in love, married with a child. She'd only smile when I look at her. Her smile would put me at ease and hypnotize me into comfort, the comfort I had never known in my angst-ridden life. I opened my eyes, found her lying next to me, gazing at me, smiling. "Honey, why aren't you blinking?" I think. There's something different about your smile. It's wider, naughtier, but it's growing wider, and why can't I move? Your smile is inhumanely wide. This isn't right. Who are you? What are you? I think, but I can't speak. I jump off the bed with all my strength and run towards my baby's room. I bend my foot, my legs wobbly. I hold the wall and rush to fetch my baby. There I see in the crib, my baby smiling, playing. What? There, that inhumanly possible wide smile on my baby. The following story is told in the form of a text message conversation between two people. Those two people will be referred to as Emily and Anonymous. Anonymous has messaged you. Anonymous. Emily Santiago, living in apartment 2E of Grovewood Heights in Tacoma, Washington. It's vital that I speak to you. You have accepted the message. Emily, how the fuck do you know where I live? Anonymous, you told me. Granted, you weren't meaning to, but here we are. Emily, what do you mean? I don't talk about where I live online. That's like rule number 1. Anonymous, on September 12th, you posted about it being a sunny day. On June 11th, you posted about a thunderstorm. On December 25th, you posted that it was snowing on Christmas. There were only 3 places in the country where all 3 of those statements were true: Western Washington, Central Kansas, and the Florida Keys. Given the times at which you post things, and when you mention being at work, it's simple to say that you live in the Pacific time zone, so Western Washington. Emily, what the fuck? Anonymous, it was tricky to narrow it down beyond that point, but however careful you are about revealing your location, your friends are less so. Combing through your friends list, it's easy to see that many of them live in Tacoma. Last week, one of them publicly posted about going to a bar with you, so that's your city. Emily, I could have just been visiting. You don't know I live there. Anonymous, true, that was a hunch, but it paid off when you posted a selfie from inside your apartment, with the window in view. Tacoma skyline, clear as day. From there it was trivial to figure out the area of Tacoma you lived in, and I called every apartment building in a 5-block radius asking for you. Your landlord was kind enough to give me your exact address. Emily, what the fuck do you want from me? Anonymous, look outside your window. Emily, is that you? Anonymous, it's one of me. Emily, you fucking freak. If you take one step closer, I'll call 911. Anonymous, don't worry. We mean you no harm. We just wanted to show you how easily someone else could track you down if they wanted. We've deleting the incriminating posts. Be more careful next time. The next person may not be so merciful. Anonymous has disconnected. Glad to see you again, I said, smirking. You're not supposed to be happy to see me, he replied. It's always size. I'm different now. Turn off that open sign and sit. I'll make you a drink. He clicked off the sign, hung his hat upon the rack, and took a seat on the stool at the counter. He likes whiskey, so I put a spritz of water in it to brighten the flavor. He works hard. How many today? I asked, sliding the glass to him. Many, he replied, visibly tired. He slid back the shot and closed his eyes, focusing on the taste. He never said, but I knew his senses were dulled after years of being active. Want another? He didn't respond. Instead, he lit up a cigarette, something he knew wasn't allowed in the bar. I smirked at him as his skinny fingers pulled it away from the puff of smoke, escaping his lips. I'm fine, Jackson. How about a venting session, huh? His suit was drenched from the rain outside. He was stressed. Let me hear it all. I know how tired you must be. He took another hit from the cigarette and looked up at me with dark eyes. It's exhausting. Every day, every night, nothing changes. I know my role, but for once I'd like to enjoy the day. I'd like to take time to enjoy the sun and its warmth. The bliss of a good night's sleep. I haven't slept in years, it seems. Hell, I don't remember the last time I took a nap. I peered out the window at the empty streets. Looks pretty empty to me, I said, while flipping off the bar lights. Rest your eyes. I won't tell anybody. Although confused, he was too wary to argue. For the first time, I watched him lay his head down and take a nap. It was surreal. I could feel the weight being lifted off my shoulders, and everyone else's. It wasn't a dark or evil feeling. It was more happiness. I was creating so much happiness and joy for everyone by letting him sleep on my counter. I felt like God, the whole world in my hands. Minutes had passed before he woke up, finally. He checked his wristwatch and shook his head to wake himself, stressed once again. Thank you. You're the only one who doesn't treat me like you should. Visit me anytime, I replied with a smile while turning the chairs on the tables. In either way. He gave me a sympathetic look as he always did before leaving. I'll be seeing you soon. The doorbell jingled as he exited into the weather. The world once more. He's my favorite customer, oddly enough. It's a thrill to see him come in, as I genuinely don't know what he's there to do. Until he visits me next time, I wonder if he'll show up again close to me, be it a family member or a friend, or even me. Death is my favorite customer. He doesn't tip well, though. Place muzzle upward to roof of mouth. There is nothing to fear. Daniel could hear it throughout the neighborhood. Gunshot after gunshot after gunshot. He covered his ears. Danny, come here. We have to do this, his mother said to him from the other side of the door. He locked it. He wasn't going to die. This message will repeat until there are none to read it. His mother quietly knocked on the door. Danny? A gunshot. In his home. It was on the other side of the wall. His dad. No. A second gunshot. That was his dad. They got to his sister first. I don't want to go, he quietly said, curling up in a ball. He heard the third and final gunshot in his house, right outside his door. His mother. The message from the government was interrupted. Daniel looked at the TV. Earlier today, this station aired what appeared to be a warning message from a U.S. government agency. This has been confirmed as a hoax. We apologize for any confusion that may have resulted. Daniel quietly opened the door to his mother lying on the floor. He grabbed the gun, put it to his head, and pulled the trigger. Long ago, I moved to the city after being in a shitty little town all my life. I pictured myself partying all night with friends in a high-rise. I quickly realized that I didn't have the money for any of that. I found an afternoon shift at working security at one of the big museums. I was bored to tears every day. No crime syndicates to bust. Figured it was better than going back to my hometown as a failure who couldn't cut it in the big city. After several months of just ramen and loneliness, I decided to go out drinking. No one cared about a rando in security uniform except for the bartender who saw a sucker drowning his blues in cheap whiskey. It was well past midnight when I staggered out. I somehow made it to the station, but it was oddly dark and all the lines were marked inoperative. There was no one in the station. The turnstiles were all open. My lucky day, I thought, and waddled on the platform without a plan. The air felt thick, with something that made my skin crawl. Shrugging, I boarded the train that arrived, whining relentlessly. The cabin I got into was mostly empty and felt old. I sat in the corner, wishing I had something to read. As the train lumbered on, people started filling in, but everyone just stared down, ignoring each other. Typical big city, I snorted in my mind. After a while, I noticed that my stop still hadn't arrived. A thin teenager made his way towards me and sat opposite to me. He had a tired smile that didn't match his age. "Going somewhere?" he asked in a soothing voice. I just rolled my eyes. Nodding, he looked around and slowly turned to look at my eyes again. "This train isn't for you," he whispered abruptly. I was about to yell at him to leave me alone before I noticed everyone was suddenly staring wordlessly at me. As my panic rose, the teen muttered, "You should go now." The train jerked to a halt. All the passengers raised clawed hands with long black nails pointing to the door. Terrified, I bolted as soon as the doors opened. I was right outside my apartment. Was there always a station here? Not caring, I ran to my tiny bed and passed out. The next morning I chalked up the night to drunkenness, but still felt uneasy. I didn't belong here. I went back to my town. I'm happy now, but as I'm drifting to sleep, I still hear the noise of that train and see the weary smile of the pale teen. Hey everyone, Mr. Ghoulie here. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and leave a comment letting me know what your thoughts were. If you'd like to see more content by me, please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell to be notified when I upload a new video. I'll see you next time.